Hi everyone, welcome back to the 2020 Biz Kickstart event. We're nearing the end of week number 2 and we're joined with Auguste to talk to us all about rapport and how to build it in a way that helps us make sales, because we can all have friends online, but because we're in business, we want to be able to use that to our advantage. So Auguste, say hey, talk to us a bit
Hey,
about yourself and how you got
hey.
started with all this.
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, who am I? If you can't tell, I'm a lover of the color purple. I am a business and sales coach, and I do this because I know that any and everybody can label themselves as an entrepreneur, but the number one unique identifying factor in any business is the person. And I have always been pro be you and do you, even before I was a business coach. But I did land into this arena on accident. I left a 20-year career as a hairstylist behind, moved to another city. What in the world am I on this earth for, God? Give me some type of epiphany. And then the rest is history as far as how I got led down this path. And in the beginning, I used to pretty much do strategy and a lot of mindset work. And it's amazing how we could do things and not really think about them. And I was noticing that these women they were executing excellent strategy. They were getting a lot of followers, but they weren't converting. And then that's when I realized that they also needed to learn how to sell. And I had to take what I do and create it into a process. And I also realized what was going on in the coaching industry. Not that scripts don't work, but most of the people, like us, we're coaches, we're very married to what we do and we're connected to the people. And a script typically just isn't going to cut it. And so here I am.
So it seems like you've gone off the back of, a lot of it just going with the flow almost, a lot of it just going with what works for you, what has worked for you. And did you stumble into this, or did you go off the back of what feedback you got, or anything like that? Was it more of a, oh, I've noticed something, I'm going to do it, or were clients giving you feedback on it?
But you know what? It was definitely, I noticed, I'm saying? I noticed what was going on, and nobody directly said to me, I need help with
Hmm.
selling. I need help with this. But as a person, when you do mindset work, you're paying attention to everything someone says and everything that they do, because you know that the lips can't really tell you where the mind is. It's also about the action. And what I was realizing was there was a very big gaping gap between the confidence of what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit 5K, 10K, 20K versus actually having the conversations and the confidence to convert. And so I began to create my sales strategy and implement that and teach people based on what I saw that they needed. And like I said, I didn't necessarily realize that that was an issue in the beginning with the clients that I was serving.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you noticed something that was happening with your current clients and thought, hey, everyone needs to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
What came up was the first thing that came up when you tried to, because we're talking about relationship building and we're talking about how to do that in such a way that, at least my first impression is, make selling easier. Because if you build the rapport enough, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, surely the actual sales part becomes easy to do once we start doing this.
Well, let me just also say this really quick before we get into rapport. We're going to talk about rapport that sells, but rapport isn't enough. Rapport is the gateway. And so you can have the most stellar strategy in the entire world. You can have the best performance and marketing could be off the chain. But if you don't establish rapport, then you're not going to be able to get inside of the potential client's psyche. You're not going to be able to get inside of their mind to extract the data that you need for that person in that moment to make it easier for you to convert them. But what I have found is that a lot of people, they even have the questions. Matter of fact, they may even have those like 6 questions. What's your problem? Where do you see yourself? What do you want to be? What's getting in your way? And then they kind of got this little pitch. But if the rapport isn't established first, then it's going to be very difficult. And so when I teach people how to sell, it's not one of those things where I can just say, hey, Mike, you know what? Before you get on the phone call, just say, mention the weather. Tell them how great it is. If you know she's got kids, don't say you've got kids, but say you've got, siblings. Don't fabricate connection. And there's a way in every industry based on what it is that you deliver, that there are certain cues, there are certain things that you should be pulling from the people that you're speaking to so that you can make connections that are actually relevant to your offer. So I'm not just talking about random rapport, which is cool to throw in the love of purple and whether or not we're both moms and whether or not we're in the same industry or we come from the same neighborhood, went to the same high school or something like that. I'm talking about a deeper rapport that allows the person that you're talking to know that they're the center of attention.
Mm. It's interesting that you say fabrication as well, because the amount of people that do that, I imagine, can be quite staggering, right? Like you do a quick Google or you check out their Facebook and go, "Ooh, I see that this person does this, this, and this. I'll mention it when I send them a message." And I think part of that is it works. I think that's part of the sort of the sell of the fabricated side, is that it works. It might not work as well as what we're going to talk about today,
right?
But unfortunately, the way of August likes purple. It's actually my mum's favorite color as well. So I thought I'd mention that. But part of the issue is it does work, doesn't it? But it might not be anywhere
it works
near
to open up the doorway for communication. But if you come onto my page and say, "Oh my, look, I see she has these things," you send me a friend request or message me and mention something that there's a commonality, and then after that you send me a link, then you've killed everything. And so what I have found is there's this spammy tactic that a lot of people use in the industry, especially on, I won't even dog a specific platform today, but they'll even market, "I can get you 3,000 leads. You know, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to message 3,000 people. And out of those 3,000 people, about 1,000 are going to click your link. And out of 1,000 that click the link, about 50 are going to register for your event. About 15 are going to show up. And if you could just convert 2 and you got 2 people that will buy a $5,000 package, just like that, you got 10K. And that is what this industry has been reduced to. How many people can I get out there and spam and let them know about you, and you risk damaging your character, and all they're doing is finding that little small moment of connection. And so it's okay to lead with that. It's okay for me to go on your profile and say, "Hey, I see you're a boss and you spoke at such and such event. I was in Florida just the other day too. I like your vibe. Let's connect." But remember, sales is about that, 7 to 12 touches, that thing that people talk about. And so that isn't technically a touch. That is a connection. That is a reach out. It's all about those things that happen after that. And so what's happening in the industry is people are being like, "Okay, well, I messaged them. I mentioned the point of connection, and now I think I can sell something to them. And then if they don't buy from me, I'm going to reach out to them and ask them, "Are they ready now? Are they ready now? Are they ready now?" And that's not building rapport. That's not establishing a connection. And I've dealt with something similar to that. A woman looked on my LinkedIn profile. She noticed that I had published about 4 books. And so she was like, "Oh my God, you're such a rock star. I really like you. I love to be connected with you. Let's have a connection call." As soon as we got on that call, she said something like, "Oh, are those your kids in the background? I have my kids too. You homeschool? Oh, I homeschool." And then she went on a rant for 10 minutes about all the people that she worked with, how many people got #1 bestseller in the last 5 years, and was like, "Yeah, if you want this, you can do it on your own for $3,500, or you can pay me and I'll add in this other stuff and it's $5K. And I'm like, "Did you even ask me? Did I want bestseller? You didn't gather any data from me. You didn't connect with me. The only thing you were concerned about was pitching to me." And so even if she's as great at what she can do as she says that she is, I have no desire to work with her. And a lot of you all don't want to realize that a lot of people don't want you because you may be good. You may be great at what you do, but you suck at connecting with people. And now with all of let me just also add this before you ask the next question. I've been in the game long enough to see the transitions with the algorithm. And see, back in the day, I could have went live, just did a simple basic video and got a shit ton of people to watch my video. And because of the way that I move, I could have been digging through and making these connections and then converting people. And I did. But now, because the algorithm suppresses so much, it literally hides specific posts from different people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as easy. Even with the ad strategy, it's not as easy. And even some of the heavy hitters are now saying, damn it, I got to go back and add a more human element to my strategy. And it can't just be a systematic process, because now you're trying to make relationships mechanical and they still don't work.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, actually, because over the years, I mean, I've noticed the shift as well. I mean, I've been online since, well, just as Facebook was taking over our lives, I think. And it's the same sort of thing where it's a combination of social media doing its thing. And I've noticed that, I don't know if you've noticed this, but it keeps connections at a certain level. What I mean by that is, let's say, like friends that you know quite well that you don't see face to face all too often are at the same level as people from another country that you've never met.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah.
so like it keeps people at a certain level, whether there used to be a deep connection or whether they're like us, right? I mean, we've known each other for quite a bit. You talk sometimes, you get on, you see each other's posts, that's fine. Me and you probably connect on a deeper level than one of my brothers. Or
absolutely.
Or like my auntie twice removed, right? Like it pushes people away as well as bringing people in to a certain degree, which means we've got to be smarter, haven't we? We've got to, but smarter doesn't replace like being more human, as you said, does it? It doesn't replace the whole,
No.
You've got to be a human. You've got to be a person in order to make this thing work.
Absolutely.
So what's the first thing that we could do to, I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, what are these cues that we look for? Probably do that later on. But when it comes to going from what I see a lot of, everyone going, oh, I noticed you're from, and it's like, oh, 2-minute look on my profile will clearly say, I don't need Facebook ads, leave me alone.
Yeah.
So I feel like people don't want to do the work either. So my first instinct is you've got to put the effort in. Is there a bit more to it than that? Just as a starting point of going from the fabricated way, trying to move towards the whole deeper connection.
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes it's just really basic. And because there's technology involved in the middle of this, we overthink it. But if you and I were at a networking event, I wouldn't come up to you and say, oh, hey, yeah, by the way, I'm a business coach. You want to sign up for this package? I got it. It's only $20,000 for the entire year. I wouldn't do that. I would come into the situation saying, hey, you know, how are you doing? And just literally keep it at that. Don't make offers straight out the gate is number one. Go ahead and use, quote unquote, the fabricated connection. Find that thing right there. Take your time and actually look at and sift through the people's stuff. You can comment on what they've created. You can add some type of insight to what they've stated. And just begin to engage. Respect the fact that people put posts up because they want the engagement. You put posts up, think about it, business owner, because you want the engagement, and literally just begin to connect from there. But if me and you talk for 2 seconds and you kind of like, hey man, I like really love your energy. I checked out your podcast and it was really dope. And you say it to me too, then you know what? Let's hop on a call. Now that's old school. I think I'm glad that I'm old school because we hopped on the phone faster than we hopped in a DM and like really get a chance to chat and to feel some people's vibes. I just recently connected with a beautiful, amazing, powerful sister. And I knew from the beginning that I potentially may want her to be in a future summit because she does marketing. She does copywriting. I came straight out the gate. Sis, I've been following you for a second. I looked at your profile. I see what it is that you're doing. We have some similar values. At least that's what it appears to be. I know you got a busy schedule, but I'm going to be straight up with you. If we can connect, if there's a genuine relationship that can come between the two of us, maybe in the future, we may be able to collaborate. You could be a guest at my summit on my podcast. And so I'm letting her know my motivation, like right up front. Sometimes you don't. So I've given you two scenarios: snailing your way, and I really shouldn't even say snailing, but taking your time and romancing the relationship. And then sometimes, but I still, but please pay attention. I still romanced the relationship, but I romanced it on the back end before I revealed it. So you can romance your way through and communicate back and forth, or you can do your research and then come out and say, hey, I've been watching you for a while. And then still that relationship has room to build. Now, we're still not at the sales conversation, right? We're still not even talking about sales strategy.
Yeah.
I always give people value. You talk to me and you walk away from me and you don't feel like you walked away with something extra. You're not on fire, you're not motivated, you didn't have a mindset shift, you didn't talk to Auguste Crenshaw. I guarantee you, every single person, when they meet me, they're like, damn, that woman, she's fabulous. I like her. You know why you like me? Because I gave you something. You said something. I was like, hey, you know what? I want you to think about this. And by the way, congratulations with that. Hey, I teach that. Let me just give you a golden nugget right quick. Lead with your value, because I'll say the same thing I said at the beginning. We are in an era where any and everyone can label themselves as an entrepreneur. Every market is saturated. So you're not being successful because the market is saturated is bullshit. You can create your own unique selling proposition, but how many different times can you say it a different way? Oh, I teach the only sales conversation that closes. I teach the six-figure closer strategy. When you get through, at the end of the day, a person still has to resonate with you. So lead with who you are, lead with what value you have to give so that a genuine connection can be created. And for those where it's not there, it's not there. And don't be attached to someone immediately falling madly in love with you, wanting to put on a ring, marry you, and hop into bed, because it really just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it started with the hair, right? I mean, I love the hairstyle. That was the first thing that drew me in. But I know when you mentioned leading with value, that's the part that was really interesting, because when I first started, before the summit, before the podcast, before anything that you see now, I heard the value thing. I was like, okay, you've got to help people out. You've got to get involved. You've got to give something. You can't just walk in and go, hey, be my friend. It never ever works that way. But when I first started, I didn't have a lot to give in terms of golden nuggets, in terms of what I knew, what I've experienced. There wasn't a whole lot there for a lot of people. So what I realized was, okay, I have to create it myself. I have to go out there and I have to build something. I have to build something, which is my brain, right? So from podcasts to audiobooks to ebooks to summits to interviews, I started my podcast for the same reason. It was to learn from people, and I love learning. That's one of the things that I love most. So I was like, right, that's what I want to do. And then over the years, I've become like more valuable, if you will, to more people. So I can message someone and go, oh, I noticed you're into this, this, and this. There's a book that I've recently read that can help with that. I can send you a copy, or, if you've got audio credits, to send you the recommendation. Or people like that side of things. But for some people, it never starts that way. It didn't start that way for me. I had to learn where my value was. I had to learn what I could give before I could give it.
Now, did you hear what you just said? Because I love everything you said. I was about to challenge you just a little bit, but you said you had to learn what your value was. So, and I deal with this with women all the time. And some of them, they're like, I just started my business, August. I just had this epiphany. And, so when we start talking about pricing and what they're going to charge and what they're going to do and what that value is going to be, a lot of times we make too much of it. And your sheer existence and your passion to do something means that there's value inside of you to transfer. And what so many people, I'm going to say this again, I'm going to say it in slow motion because I want your listeners to get this. You are the value. We live in a world where anyone and everyone can label themselves as an entrepreneur. The number one unique identifying factor is you, not your unique selling proposition, not your ability to market or copyright yourself. And so when you, for instance, you start your business, you're like, hey, I understand it's only the determined people that get there that can make it. So I just want to be a motivation. Or whether you are a person that wants to help people, get their diet intact, or you do some healing from some trauma or whatever it is, you know what? Your only value may be your story. Your value may be how you healed from the trauma. Your value may be those things that got you motivated, that were able to make you be able to stay in there. Your value may be everything that you had to do in order to deal with your weight loss. And so your golden nuggets, they're all inside of you. They're a part of you and they're a part of your story. And so if there's a person that's listening to this right now, what I don't want you to think is that, oh, Auguste can give a shit ton of value because she mentioned that she wrote 4 books, she does summits, she has a podcast, she has a bunch of coaching clients, and I've done all of those things. I've led with my value since day one. I didn't have a single client, but I was out there spitting tips and nuggets on Facebook 3 days a week in 2016. And so that was really all that I had to give. And so people perceived me to be and to have something that I didn't. And so my first coaching client, I charged like $100 per session, but they were so eager to give me that money because I gave them value. Now, of course, as I've gone, like you said, I have a lot of like people, you can get this free resource, you get that free resource, but just go binge on the podcast. You know, whatever it is, I can lead with value in so many different ways. But if anybody's listening and you don't have as much as me and Mike have right now, you have yourself. And that is always going to be part of what you need to insert. When I teach my sales strategy and we're talking about building rapport, rapport is I feel you, you feel me. It's commonality, it's connection. And so that means that you have to learn how to have a conversation that's not about you, but letting the person that's going to work with you know that there's something about you that they resonate with. That's what rapport is really about. It's about resonating with people. So inserting you and your story into the relationship as well as a sales conversation when you get there is a game changer, and you got it right now. But like Mike said, he had to learn what that was, and you either figure it out on your own or you get a coach to help pull it out of you. But you got value day one, because the person that needs you, they're not where you're at. But you're going to keep growing, and so will the people that need you.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, when you think about it, it's trying to make the conversation about them while inserting the fact that you understand their situation. Like, it doesn't have an awful lot to do with you, aside from the fact that you understand where they're at. That's kind of all that tends to be. But again, this is reasonably, how can I put it? Nowadays, that's reasonably straightforward to understand, because most people learn from their mistakes. So if they have 100 conversations that literally don't, I had one yesterday, and I'm sat and I'm reading the messages going, no. that was my instant reaction was, no, like you've got no idea. And they looked at my profile and gone, oh, I noticed you help people like go full time with their business. That's what your private coaching is. Oh, have you thought about taking your brand bigger? And I go, do they not realize like I do more than just the coaching? And clearly they've literally just saw the headline at the top of the page and gone, oh, I'll use that. I go, the problem is people aren't naive anymore. They used to be. People are in the know now more than ever before. People are more skeptical now than ever before. People are more cynical now than ever before. Unfortunately, I'm even more so because I'm around it so often. So it's something that people have to realize before it ruins the whole game for them. Now, I don't want people to be put off. I don't want people to stop doing it. I don't want people to stop running businesses, because I think that right now the world is run on people running their own businesses at the moment.
Hello.
But what's the difference? What's the difference between rapport that's like what we have, right? Friends, we get on, we connect, we've got a lot in common. And then someone that goes, you know what, I want to buy from this person. What's the main difference?
The main difference is I talked less and you talked more. One of the things that, just getting to the root of my strategy is that, when what that person did to you, and I'm glad I was basically getting ready to dig into this. What the person did to you, like you said, they just looked and they're like, oh, wow, he's a coach, he does this. And so who doesn't, this becomes the cynical question, who doesn't want to make more money? I'm sure you want your brand to go bigger. So I can just lead with that, because who doesn't want that? But like you said, we can't insult people's intelligence. So when you and I are talking on a sales call, the question is, who's talking the most? Like I told you with the example before, that woman, she asked a couple questions. We recognized we both homeschool our kids. And then she gave me her spiel for like 10 minutes. And then that was that. She didn't ask questions. She didn't collect data. And so psychologically, if you're talking more than me, I think that it's all about your sale. If I'm talking more than you, then I think that it's about me. And this is critical, especially for women. Women are emotional beings, and let's just be stereotypical in relationships. I just want a man that'll listen to me. But at the end of the day, when you get through with the stereotypes, women love men and people and friends that listen. And that same strategy has to be in your sales conversation. Now, the reason why most people will be like, oh my God, August, I don't want to do that, is because if I just open up the door for somebody to talk, they're going to tell me their whole life story. I was on a sales call one day for an hour and a half, and this woman told me everything about from when she started. And it's not like that. You're already supposed to strategically have at least a vein of questions that you ask, because you're supposed to be directing it down a path. So you're specifically asking specific questions as it pertains to what you have to offer, as it pertains to pulling the pain points out, as it pertains to digging deeper. And because you are asking specific questions and you're getting them to open up, if they're saying it, they're revealing it, they have to acknowledge whether or not they want to get the help to change that thing. And then when you're inserting comments to them, it needs to stay directly related to what they're saying, not going off tangent, not just saying random things. So sales is a specific process, but I'll say it again and make sure that your audience gets it. The number one thing is that if I'm the one who's selling, I don't need to be talking as much. I need to be asking questions that allows me to extract data, to get people not to only say the technical points that they're dealing with, but emotional and psychological issues that they have. Then I need to put in and insert some of my story for the point of relatability. That's where the rapport begins to come in. I understand that a lot of people don't understand what that looks like, and they think if they say one thing that they're going to do that, but then they end up being on a call that could have been 45 minutes that ends up being an hour and a half. And they're wondering why did they have such great conversation, but the person still didn't click the link, because you were overbearing, because you talked too much, because when you did talk, it didn't necessarily relate to you and the person. It kept going back to your product, back to your product. You're connecting. You don't have to keep telling your product. See, we say we're supposed to teach transformation. We say that we're supposed to talk transformation, but a lot of us were just bullet points. Can I get my stats out there? I did this for this client. I've sold this many books. I've done this. No. If I'm going to build rapport with you, I got to let you know that you're important. And that means you talk more than I do.
I like the fact that you try to make them feel like they're important. I mean, that's, it's almost like that, the way that you said it, it was like, well, that should really be a given anyway. If you think about how it tends to work. Like, I know, like some of my best friends, it's natural to make them feel like they're important because they actually are. Like it's not false, because it is what it is. Like if they want to talk to me, yeah. If they want to phone me, of course. Like it just makes sense. I wouldn't. There isn't a voice in my head that goes, ooh, what if? There's no such thing as that, because you don't have to pretend, because they are important. So regarding the sales side of things, surely it's kind of the same way. The person that's paying you is more important, because, well, they're the people that are going to invest in themselves.
Well,
through you.
Do you mind if I go ahead and interject, because you're going down a path that I want to make sure that it's understood that I can meet a woman today and she will know beyond a shadow of a doubt that she is the center of attention in my mind, my spirit, and at that moment. I don't have to, do 7 to 12 touches all the time. And I don't, it's not, once again, don't make it mechanical. It's very organic. And so to help somebody else understand and not go down that slippery slope of, well, I can do it easily with my brother or my friend because we've known each other for a substantial amount of time. It's one of those things where why are you doing what you're doing in the first place? Like if you help women who've been sexually abused get over their trauma, you are really attached to the damn why behind what you do. So as soon as a woman is willing to tell you that my father did this to me from the time I was, 5 to 11 years old, you are automatically all in. As a coach, I've told you, authenticity is at the root of what I do. So when I see a woman and I hear her do and say a little something, and I'm like, she's a boss. But then I see her do something else. I say, oh, wow, she's not showing up fully. When she and I get on that phone and I talk, I want to know what's going on. I want to know why you're not showing up all the way, sis. Because I'm driven by my why. And because I'm driven by my why to help more women show up authentically, to be profitable, not just claim to be an entrepreneur, but remain to be an entrepreneur and have a profitable, sustainable business. The way that I present myself and my singular focus, it being her, she knows at that moment that she is the only thing that matters. But if I start talking about all of the things that I've done for other people, all of the steps in my strategy and my process, then I'm more concerned with letting her know that I have something to give that I can make some money off of. And that's the psychological root of that. I'm not saying that you don't give bullet points that you can't identify. And some of you, your price points, and depending on the personality of the person, you really do have to give more structured information. But before you get to that, make me want to hear what you have to say. Make me be so enamored with your soul and your spirit that I want to hear your 5 to 7 steps. Make me want to work with you. And that starts with me being important. And I'm important if you're really on fire for doing what you say that you do in your business.
I like the way that you said it's about making them important, and it does feel easy if it's something that you actually want to do. Like the amount of people that I talk to where I'm just curious. Like there is, the only word that I can really give it is curiosity. Like you are curious about that person. That's why you help those people, is because you're curious about what's going on for them and you want to help them. Doesn't matter what sort of scenario it is. Like for me, that's one of the words that literally, when you were near the end, I thought it's curiosity is what it is. It's about being curious about the person enough to ask those questions. Mm-hmm. It's something that you're passionate enough about to want to know. There's that real desire there, isn't there? But yeah, how do you balance that? Because I know how you can get excited, Auguste, so I'll try and rein this in a little bit. But how do we do that on the sales call? How do we do that with the conversations that we're having? Because I've been guilty of it. I know a lot of people watching might be guilty of it, where they let their excitement, they let their desire, they let their passion for these people, and they just don't show up. You just keep going because they're so passionate, they get excited, they want to help, they want this, they want that, they want to do this, do that, because basically the person's come on, they have the chat to them, and all of a sudden a light bulb goes up in your head and go, yes, that's the person, and they just go off on one, and the person they're talking to sat there like,
So if I understand your question correctly, to make sure that I respond correctly, is you're talking about the person that's selling. When you're talking to the individual, your light bulb.
They get excited and they're passionate because they want to help, but it means that they then go too far.
Yeah. And so once again, all of this can be killed by not talking too much. But one of the things that I have my clients do strategically is to look at the characteristics of the kind of person that they want to work with, and the kind of characteristics of the person that they don't want to work with. Because seeing that you have a need and seeing that I can fix the need, it's not enough. It's the kind of thing that will get us excited, because, a person will get on the call like, oh my God, Mike, I've been following you for so long. I need you. And so those 3 words, I need you, like, yes, this is firing me up. This is going to be an easy sales call. And then you start talking and you're bonding, you're doing all of that stuff. And then before you know it, nothing's happened. They either don't sign up or they do sign up, or like you said, they don't show up and they don't do the work. And so you have to take those characteristics, and the ones that you're most afraid of showing up with, the kind of person that you don't want to work with, you got to ask those questions. One of the keys to being able to sell and develop real rapport and to know whether or not you resonate with someone in sales is to ask the hard questions. And so, and I'm like skipping all the way to the end. Sometimes I tell people, well, hey, you can do this with me and it only costs $2,000. They're like, yeah, I really, really want to do it. Well, I'm not going to get off of the phone and send them the link. If I notice or hear the slightest hint of something, I'm going to say, okay, so how does that price point make you feel? You know, how often does somebody do something like that? If I'm going to work with somebody and they're like, yeah, you know, I'm really excited. I want to work with you in a conversation, but maybe they word vomit that they work with a few other coaches and they haven't had great success. That's like a red flag for me, because it's not, even if all three of the coaches you work with were shitty, what inside of you didn't allow you to detect that they were shitty? Because after the first time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me. Third time, shit. Who do we blame? You know what I'm saying? So I might then delve in and say, okay, so what do you believe were the issues with that last coach? What was your work ethic like? You know, and so you have to start asking hard questions, because you can't just ask questions only to find out what they need and get excited about it and say, I can help them. You have to strategically ask questions to reveal work ethic, to reveal limiting beliefs. And so when I hear certain kinds of limiting beliefs, since I'm a mindset coach, that may make me say, okay, I see that this was going to be a little bit more difficult to work with. Or sometimes I have to say, nope, you're not ready. You need to go work with somebody else. I'm going to end up beating your ass mentally. You know what I'm saying? Trying to work with you. And so you can't get excited. You need to learn how to stay at an even keel and a calm posture, but still assert passion. Okay, you got to stay at an even keel and be calm and assert passion and ask the questions that get people to reveal their needs, to reveal their issues. And then if you're in your conversation as you're talking, that proves something, that you're not been out of shape about the sale. You have to go into every sales call empowered by the fact that you get to say no. Not just hoping that someone else will say yes on the other side. You're not even supposed to feel like that. No matter how good it feels, I understand that you need that $10,000 today, but you don't want $10,000 from a person that's going to become a headache client. So what kind of questions do you need to ask in order to understand their personality, understand their pains, their issues? You have to strategically do that in every industry, and every person has their different things. So for instance, with me as a business coach, if a person says something like, yeah, I just haven't really had a lot of luck with women, you know, and I'm really trying to build my business. We could just be having a casual conversation on a call. I could have wanted to offer her group coaching, but I realized a red flag. Okay, well, what does that mean? And then the conversation goes down a rabbit hole, because just that little bit of this means you have to be attentive and intentional in the sales conversation. If I'm realizing that you have a problem working with other women and a group coaching program inserts me, but it's hinged upon community, I'm not going to offer you a group. But then you can't afford one-to-one. So, you know, what do we do? It's all about the questions that you're asking. I'm hoping that this is, you know, helping you out with the way that I do what I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely making sense. I think leading with the questions is something that can help, because it's something that I've noticed a lot of people tend to struggle around that, because people do get excited and then they just don't stop talking, and before you know it, they've overwhelmed the person that they're trying to talk to, and then it's never going to work. Not because they don't get on, not because they don't want it, not because they can't afford it, but because they're too overwhelmed to make the decision there and then, because the person's not stopped talking and
Well,
allow the other person to speak.
Do you mind me just saying this really quick? I can ask a woman 5 questions. So who are you? What do you do? Who do you serve? How much do you charge? And what's the value behind what you charge? Those are very basic questions. But if she's like, yeah, you know, well, I've mostly been working with women, and a lot of them, bam, she already stuck. She needs me. I know she doesn't have a niche, because she didn't come straight out the gate and say, oh, well, I can tell you right now, I work with entrepreneurs who've been in business for about 5 years, who's stagnant. They hit their own glass ceiling. If they say something like that, then I know that they're clear. Oh, yeah, you know, I'm a relationship coach. I just want people to have healthy relationships. Well, are they heterosexual or homosexual? You know what I'm saying? Are they married? Are they about damn near ready to get divorced? Are they newlyweds? You know what? When they can't answer one of my basic questions, then I can go down that rabbit hole with just one question alone. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
So
yeah.
that's
So
what I'm
you've got
saying
the
is
questions
strategic.
that'll help with the whole raising the red flags based on their answers, yeah? So like the way they answer it, how well they answer it will determine whether or not you, because then I imagine then if it does bring up a bit of a flag for you, like they've not pressed the right button, you can go, okay, well, they're not ready yet. I won't even mention what I do because they're not ready yet.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about something else. Maybe they can listen to the podcast. Maybe that you can recommend a book for such and such a person, or whatever the case is. So you judge it based on their answers. I like that.
Yeah. Because what if I say, wait a minute, hold up. Now I can tell you right now, as a business coach, here's an example of rapport and relatability. I remember when I was just trying to help everybody, male, female, it didn't make a difference. It was really hard for me. I had to realize that niching down is not about, stifling you. It's about actually helping you explode. And if I say that, and I'm like, so yeah, you don't have to answer right now, but I'm going to tell you, sis, it would really help you if you can, label those couples. Are you really trying to help newlyweds versus, people that have hit that, 40-year mark? And I think now that the kids are gone, I don't love you anymore, because your marketing strategy is so much more potent. If that person comes back to me and says, yeah, you know what? Well, if it's one thing that I've learned is I don't want anybody to put me in a box, because I can do this and I can do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then that level of resistance, that tells me that you're not coachable according to what I believe in as a coach. I'm not sitting here telling you I'm trying to put you in a box. And if you want to coach all of the above, that's fine. But for right now, to get a name known and to build an empire, I need you to have a niche. If me and you go down the rabbit hole of that conversation, you could begin to say things that let me know that I don't need to work with you. If I say that, and then you say something along the lines of, instead, yeah, I know, and everywhere I go, people keep telling me to niche down, but I'm really not even sure what to do and which one should I do, because I would think that if people have been married longer, then they got a stable income and they can invest. But if they newlyweds or they ain't got married yet, they may not have their money together. They just spent a bunch of money on a wedding. I don't know if they can afford. When they start doing that, then I know that their mind is curious and looking for a solution. So then I need to go down the rabbit hole of that conversation to say, well, I might even give them a nugget. It might not even be their industry, but I can say, hey, this is when you can use your testimonials. And you can say, you know what, I worked with a marriage coach before, and she had to realize that when she did this, bam, she was able to do high ticket sales or get more clients. And then she ended up branching out and doing a secondary thing, because after people saw what work she did with married couples, she was able to get newly engaged couples. And then they're like, oh, so I've done a couple of things. I've inserted a testimonial. I've explained that I understand what they're going through, and I've given them a snippet of an idea. And I can't be afraid to give value or create a transformation and think that because I did that, they're going to get off the call and they don't need me, because they still don't know how to execute it. And that's what keeps the conversation focused. So we don't talk about any and everything. I'm going to keep on only hammering in on those points so that I lead the conversation down a path to a close. You're leading the conversation, not just letting it go all willy-nilly.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, actually, because a lot of people do tend to struggle with the whole networking conversations can last hours. And I get that, because it depends on what the conversation is. If you're meeting someone for the first time, it might take you a couple of hours to really understand what's going on. But if the intention is to connect and see if it's possible to work together, then you've got to ask certain questions to get certain answers, right? It's about the quality of your questions. I want to flip it on its head a little bit, because we've been talking a lot about calls. We've been talking a lot about the whole networking side and reaching out, and we had a good 20 minutes on what not to do. So one of the things I'm curious about as well is, how do we do this without the call? Very broad way of putting it. But we're going to move on to sort of the content side and the social media side. and okay, well, on the call, it's not too bad because I can just ask questions, get to know them, be curious about them, make sure I'm on the call with the right people instead of the wrong people. We can sort of tick boxes as far as that's concerned, but how can I build rapport with the content that I put out? How can I build rapport with, let's just say, a Facebook post or an Instagram post, or I know TikTok's getting quite big now. How do I do the whole rapport building thing? But calls are easier, at least after our conversation, right? If people are watching now going, oh yeah, I've got the calls all wrapped up now, awesome, epic. But now what? Like we're sort of tracking back to before the call. How can I do the rapport side with content instead of just getting people on calls all the time?
But see, but the beautiful thing about content is it also can be the filter, so that when you get people on the calls, they're already pre-qualified. And the pre-qualification, it's all the same thing. That's what is so funny to me. When I teach what I teach to my clients, everything, it just builds upon the other, and they're interwoven and connected. So number one, you've got to know who your ideal client is. You got to know, I tell people all the time, you need to know your ideal client so well that you know that she's the kind of person that hits the snooze button 3 times before she gets up. If she's had a cup of coffee on the way to work and still got a Starbucks and then had a Pepsi because she has to get through her day off of caffeine. And when you've done, and in the beginning, this is difficult, right? This kind of goes back to the thing you said earlier about finding your value. Some of you don't really find that client, but when I tell you, I can tell my ideal client down to the T what they're suffering, their pain point is, then you've number one got to know that. When you know that, creating your content, everything that you do in the sales conversation is the same thing. You first got to get into their mind. You got to develop a rapport. You need to be asking questions so that you can extract data. You need to be inserting your expertise. And then you need to be finally asking for the sale. These are all things that I do in my sales process. So when I'm writing a post and I'm putting some copy out there and I want somebody to come and take my class or get an intensive with me for sales strategy, then I might want to lead with a shitty ass story about when I didn't know how to sell, or when something happened with one of my clients, and don't make it pitchy. Like, just really layman term. Oh my God, let me tell you all about the first time that I was silly enough to think that this woman was going to pay me $5,000. And I talked to her for blah, 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 blah. You can literally put a few statements in there and then say, and then you immediately begin to give the teachable nuggets, and you begin to talk in their mindset, just like you. You automatically have to empower the presence of knowing that the people that are reading your stuff, they're your people. So then I can say something along the lines of, well, just like you, because you probably did the same thing, because you were thinking this, that, and the other, and you tell them. You're not wishy-washy, you're down. You say, but I can tell you right now, over the years, this is what I learned that we're missing. Then you can insert your strategy. These 3 or 4 or 5 bullet points were missing from what I was doing. These were the things that I had to add in there. And if you dealt with this, and you know what I'm talking about, DM me, click the link, or put a comment in the below. And that's when you do that call to action, which call to action is not always click my link and buy my shit. It is something to monitor behavior. I call it CIA in your biz, like really being able to watch it. And so when someone says something, then you can engage in dialogue and have comments on social media. But if the only thing you're doing is, people don't like those long-winded posts, but if those long-winded posts, they're effective. You can't cheat. Less is not more. not in this realm. And for the person that's your ideal client, they're going to read it. For the person that's not, you're going to repel them, be like, nah, because see, that's not me. That's not my story. That's not my truth. I don't know what she's talking about. You don't have to do keto that leaves all that weight. You should just go vegan or blah, blah, blah. You're talking to the people that resonate with you and want your product or service. And so you have to have that posture. You have to position yourself as the expert, and you have to have that same vulnerability. You got to tell them their story and tell them your story. And then what ends up happening is a person is so magnetized by your vulnerability and transparency that they begin to trust you. What do we say? People buy from individuals that they know, like, and trust. And so if the only thing I know is your system and your process when I read your post, I ain't working with you. But if I know you and your system or process, then I might want to know more. And so writing copy, all of these things that you're figuring out, these questions that you learn to ask on the sales call, the deeper dive, those are all posts. They're all posts. You don't even have to do that much work. You're recreating the same thing over and over and over again. And people are going to see what? consistency, and consistency cashes out flat out.
Yeah, for sure. I like the way that you said it's about being vulnerable as well, because I find that the more I share my story, granted that they are longer posts, they are essentially chapters of books potentially and stuff like that. So it does make sense. It does make sense because when people buy from people, right? There's very very old saying, people buy from people, and it's almost like you've got to. It's weird. Like when I first started doing it, I felt like I had to prove that I was a person. It was a weird sense of, I'm not just posting stuff on social media. I'm not just a guy behind the camera. I'm not just this untouchable guy, speaker, whatever it is. I am a human as well.
Yes.
So when I first did this, which was a few years ago now, so I'm tracing back, it was hard. It felt like I had to prove to people that I was a human, that I had to. They were almost like therapy sessions for myself when I first wrote them. They were kind of like struggling. I'd finish the post, I'd post it and go, oh my God, that was hard work. Oh, that was painful. Oh my God, if anyone actually reads it to the end, I'm going to die. But over the years, it doesn't get, I say it doesn't get easier. It gets easier, but what you share becomes deeper. So there's a lot of people out there now that are sharing the hard parts of their story. They're sharing the difficult times. They're sharing their rock bottoms, essentially, and how they overcame it. Some people haven't overcame it, but they're still sharing it. You know, I share very often that the fear and the mind chatter and all those things, it's a repetitive thing. So when I first took my business full time, it showed up. When I first went on stage, lo and behold, shows up again. When I got over the full year of wanting to do a podcast before I actually started my podcast, the fear shows up again, and it shows
does.
up again, and it shows up again. And people don't seem to get it, but the only way people are going to get it is the fact that I keep sharing it. So that's a big part of this whole thing. I know there's a whole lecture argument about social media is more negative than positive.
For
A lot of people, you do a hashtag on Twitter, and you can go down a rabbit hole of, do people really think this? Like, what on earth's going on? And that's what can happen. So social media can have a negative spin for some people. And I understand that, I get that. So again, when I first started doing it, it was like, I don't want to contribute to that. I want to post when I've had a good day, because I don't want to contribute to the blackness that is the deep dark hole of social media. But then it became clear to me that, I don't know if it's been the same for yourself, get to that now, but you're not actually contributing to the negativity if you show people how you came out of it. If you just say, having a bad day, eating Cheerios for breakfast because I can't be bothered to cook, I walked to the shop in my Ugg boots with messy hair, well, when I had hair, it became more about, like, you don't just share the bad. You don't just say, having a bad day, full stop.
Context.
It's about context. It's about, okay, well, having a bad day, and you go, well, I know tomorrow's going to be better. So there's always that ending of, there needs to be a reason to post it. I can't just say, woke up, stomped my foot against the door, no hot water in the shower, today is going to be a bad day, right? Because that is just, I feel like it can't just be negative. There needs to be something else in the story, something else in the content that adds context, gives people a sense of reassurance, gives people a sense of, oh, he is on his way out. Like, he is on his way back. He is doing this. He is doing that. And I think that people tend to miss that. People tend to think, oh, well, if I share my story and share the things that I've gone through, people will think I'm a mess. And so, well, the problem with that is everyone's a mess.
Yeah, but notice one of the things that I said was that you say, this is what I did, but this is what I learned. When I gave that scenario, hey, I thought this woman was going to spend this money with me, but she didn't. And this is why. And this is why I can teach you this, or this is why that happened.
Yeah,
Sharing, because, and I do have women that deal with that. To take what you said even deeper, if part of your story means that you got to reveal that your mom or dad, somebody that you really love, didn't necessarily do the best when it came to, your upbringing,
yeah,
people can be afraid to share their story
of
because
course.
at the heart and soul of them, they're still very pure and they love people and they don't want to damage other people. But you know what? I can tell my story about my abusive ex-husband. I can tell my story about my mother giving me up at 18 months. I can tell my story about my father not being in my life. And at the end of the day, when I tell my story, it's all about how I posture it. I
Yeah,
don't leave any of them. My mother had a reason. She's a young teenage mom, and there was a season when it didn't make sense to me. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? My
of
dad was
course.
younger than her. So how was I supposed to expect them to be there? My abusive ex-husband, I had to ask myself what allowed you to be with him and stay that long. And look at what he came from. And he had his story. And so I see women wrestle with that all the time. But I'm also not talking about you just sharing any and every parts of your story. You, as a business owner, you're also very strategic and calculated. You work a lot with people's mindset and being determined and sticking in and being motivated. So yeah, you can start off in the beginning and say there was no hot water, I stubbed my toe and all of that stuff. And then when you show how you were a total badass and you got through it, then that's what makes all of the difference, because that's what people love. That's why in 99% of the movies, the heroes win. And so we are all inserting one thing. We're fueling one thing, and that's hope. Every political campaign for presidency, not going down that rabbit hole for the United States, folks, but all of the campaigns are about what? Hope and change.
Yeah,
In the United States, every political candidate is there that the core is hope and change. That's what they're selling. And for
yeah,
you all, when you're selling as business owners, you're selling hope and change. People that are hoping that their business could be better, they can change their lifestyle, you're selling all of that. People that are hoping they can get more clients and make more money, they can change how much, where they live or their address or what they're driving, that's what you're selling. And so if you're going to tell your dog eat dog story, then you also need to say, but this is what I learned, or this is what I'm learning, and this is why I feel better, even if I haven't came all the way through it, because now what you're perpetuating is hope. And
yeah,
even if you, for some of the newer people that may be listening to your summit, if you don't have a product or service yet, but you know that this is something you're supposed to do and you're willing to share your story as you're coming out, you are still planting seeds to people. And when you do finally come out and you created a product, you've been there, you've been consistent. People have heard you, they have seen you, they know you, they like you, they trust you, they feel like they resonate with you. And you will be one of those people that be like, hey, when I finally launched, look at all of this money I made. But you've been planting seeds all along.
yeah,
So tell your story, but make sure that you tell how you are, or have overcome or are in the process of overcoming.
yeah, for sure. I like the way that you kind of position it in that context of hope and change. You position it in the whole sort of, whether you're coming out of it or you're on your way out of it, there is that sense of you've got to show that as well. You can't just give people the dirt without the fact that you are in the process of cleaning it up, I suppose. So yeah, it's a very interesting way of putting it. For people that have no idea about you, August, no idea what you've got going on, no idea what you're up to, where can people learn more about you?
You can go to my website. August is with an E. I think you got the link somewhere, but it's augustcrenshaw.com,
Mm-hmm.
AUGUSTE, and it's CRENSHAW. If you Google it, everything you find, Twitter, Facebook, IG, YouTube, you're going to find me somewhere. But I love to tell people to go to my website and check me out. It has some pretty pertinent data. And then the social media place that I hang out on the most, other than my own new platform, which is AC Live, is Facebook. So that's, for those of you that haven't gotten acclimated to where I'm at, but you can find me, and I give a shit ton of value all day long.
All right, August, thanks for coming on. Do you have any parting words, any, no stone unturned wisdom that you want to leave us with regarding building rapport?
Pretty much everything that needs to be said has been said. My thing is that some of you may believe that you should use scripts, that it's more simplistic than that. Guess what? I believe that everybody's truth is their truth. But for the individuals that know that you need something more because you're tired of thinking that you got it and then hiring the client from, the client from hell hiring you, or you just keep on failing at your sales calls, I have to reemphasize even the more that rapport is necessary. And rapport is them getting to know you as well, because we live in a world where anyone and everyone can label themselves as an entrepreneur, and you are the number one unique identifying factor.
All right, awesome. Well, we do have someone live. I don't know if you have any questions for you. So what I'll do is I shall unmute. I think it's, I don't know how you pronounce it, so hopefully I'll get this
Anitra.
right. Anitra, there we go, we got there. Do you have any questions for August? I'll give you an unmute so you have the chance to chat if you have.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad I could kind of show up and catch you guys. I was like, I know I got something to do. So, August, the only question I have for you is, when you first get started and you have those questions, that you're going to ask a person that could be a potential client, how many questions do you suggest, and is there a path in which a person should go when asking those questions?
I say that the baseline is that you should know your ideal client enough to ask at least 5 questions. There should be 5 core questions that you should be able to ask, that, and any of those can lead you down a rabbit hole to keep going further. The questions definitely need to build up. You need to understand your product and service enough that the conversation doesn't sound like you're just asking anything. So for instance, if you're a person who does Facebook ads or something like that, I wouldn't lead with, so how much money have you spent on Facebook ads? Of course, you want someone to hire you that's willing to invest, but that wouldn't be the question that I would lead with. I want to know, have you used Facebook ads? What kind of luck have you had with them? What kind of reservations do you have, so that I can get to the core? Remember, I said something, well, you might not have been on here earlier, but part of what we do is we ask questions that get into the core and the psyche of individuals. So yeah, you do have to ask the questions in a specific order. And the one question should be able to build on top of the other. Like I said before, I'm going to say, well, what is it that you do? You're going to get excited by telling me that you are a health and wellness coach. And then I'm going to say, who do you serve? Which is then going to lead into you being excited about saying what you do and how you serve those people. So for the person that's trying to do it on your own, you need to visualize those questions building up, and then paying attention to, like I said, those little red flags, so that you can take certain questions a little bit deeper than the rest of them. I hope that makes sense for you.
Absolutely. That's all I had. I didn't have any major other questions, but when you first get started, it's those, what do I ask people? I'm a little nervous type of, how do you, kind of get around those things when you're not really for sure. And, just having those 5 pertinent questions that would help you get to the road that you're trying to get to.
Yeah, and those questions will be connected to your process.
Yeah, the thing that stood out for me was you have to open the door first before you can go down it. Like sometimes, like just asking someone, okay, if we use Facebook ads as an example, right? So like one of the first questions that I might ask is if you used Facebook ads before. Because if we assume that they've used Facebook ads before, and you start going down the how much money have you had, you go, I've never used Facebook ads before, and then you shut them down then, because you're basing it off an assumption that they've used Facebook ads before. So one of the things that, again, this is me processing what August has said. So those of you that have watched the full video, bear with me, but it comes down to not making assumptions first.
Yes.
Like if you assume something, you could be wrong. And the problem with trying to build relationships with people is you don't know until you ask.
Yes. It's like a person. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's all right now. So you got to ask, like, again, we use Facebook ads because it's a dead easy one to come up with. It's like, because if they've never used Facebook ads, your next question's different than if they have used Facebook ads.
Absolutely.
So it comes back to what you said.
Different.
It's based off their answers. It's not based, like, you don't like, I agree with you, August, about not having sales scripts, right? Because if you go down the list, then their answers are going to inform your next question. And that's how this interview's gone. I don't have a script. I don't have an auto cue. I've just about got lighted in where I am now, right? So I've based my questions off what August has said.
Yeah.
Now, that's how I coach. That's how I interview. That's why I started interviewing, because I've turned myself into a very, very good coach now over the years of doing this thing, because it's based on, as August said, you've got to listen. And then it's based on what they've said informs your next question. So, like, for instance, again, I am just processing what you said, August. So I just sort of, if you think about the Facebook ads, if they have used Facebook ads, you might ask, okay, well, how was your last ad? How did it go? How much did you spend? What was the result? Were you happy with the result? Talk to me about the last time you used Facebook ads. If the answer was no, they were like, right, okay, well, did you look into it? Like, have you considered it?
Yeah, why do you want it?
Something you've even tried, or has it just been organic so far? So
yeah, because imagine you doing that, but imagine you assuming that because they reached out to you, they had, and you just go down your script. Oh, did you know ads can do this and ads can do this and blah, 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 blah. And then you say, and I can give you a package for $3,000 and that's going to kickstart you. And then they say, oh, okay. You're like, well, why are you hesitating? Well, I mean, I've never used Facebook ads before and I'm not, you're like, what? And see, this is something that a lot of people don't do, Mike, is that if I'm doing Facebook ads and then I say, hey, have you ever done it before? And you say you haven't, then I need to go down, my script needs to change and say, well, what made you reach out to me today? Are you inquiring so you can see what you can learn? Or are you serious about implementing? And then if they say I'm inquiring, then you may have to say, look, I love you. We can have a little brief combo. I can maybe give you a little insight, but I'm going to have to let this go because honestly, I work with individuals who already have some previous experience with it and that are typically ready to invest at, $2,500 or above. And so sounds like you're trying to delve into something you don't want to do. Because I know people that'll stay on calls, you know what I'm saying, for 30, 45 minutes with someone that they could have identified in the first 5 minutes is not an ideal client or somebody that's not going to buy. I'm not saying ditch them and say to hell with them, because you see how you could still leave them with some value, because when they're ready, then they may come back to you. But I'm not going to give them the same caliber of conversation with someone who I'm looking to land a sale with.
Yeah, it is that difference between as well. Like, I'm sure this is about the sales call, right? Like, you're hopping onto a sales call. One of the first questions I tend to ask is, why did you decide to book the call with me? Versus, because it completely depends. But again, if you're starting out, it does help. I mean, we are sort of the outlier, is that our profession's asking questions. So we don't necessarily need a script. We can go off the back of like our heads spinning with, okay, how do I start this question? How do I end this question? And what's the context? What words do I use to make it personal to that person, right? That's kind of how my brain tends to work. But when I first started, I needed a script. I needed a set of questions that I needed just to set the scene, just to be able to set the scene of, okay, why is this person here? Can I help them? And am I the person to help them? Because it could be somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be me. That was what I used like 5 years ago, God knows how many years ago, back when I was tennis coaching, never mind like the online world now. But I was like 18, just starting, no idea. I could hit tennis balls, I could coach, but I couldn't sell. So I was like, okay, I need some help with it. I need a blueprint to go off, even if I rip the blueprint up halfway through and go, I'll do see what happens.
Some direction.
So I sort of, I understand where Anitra is coming from in that when you're starting out, you need something. Now, not everyone does. Some people can just roll with it. But I was one of those people that I needed something, even if like it was just so I had some predictability around what the conversations would be like. I didn't want to go into a call with someone and go, what on earth do I ask here? I have no idea what I'm doing. Because the problem is when you're starting out, you might not have overly confident about your abilities as a service provider anyway. So you might have this whole, am I good enough to get results right now? Because I'm just starting out, I don't know where I'm at, and I might need just to build up my confidence with what I offer before I can build up my confidence around how do I sell this thing. And I get that, and I had that. So when I was trying to sell something, having the script was like, I have an idea on what I'm going to say. Well, now it doesn't matter. Now it's just like, I just roll with it now because over the years you do get better. So this is what it comes down to as well, is when you start to build in this thing, as I said, like sharing my story as well, it was about, well, it's just going to be hard when you first do it. Sometimes there's no way of getting around that. I often talk about, you got
to do the work.
Yeah, I often talk
Practice
about
makes
like,
better.
You've got to go through it. You know, a lot of people try to avoid stuff, don't they? Like, if I have the script, then I avoid I don't know what to say. If I have the pre-qualification, then I avoid the whole, I don't know if they want it. And it's like, well, why are we trying to avoid it? Just do it. Just go through the bad stuff, you know? I mean, I know Seth Godin used to say when he was writing blogs is that he can write bad blogs all day and he just publishes one of them. He writes like 4 or 5 a day and publishes one of them. And it's like, and he does that. So it's like, if he can do that and feel okay with it, why are we so fixated on trying to avoid the fact that, hey, it's not going to be great when you first try to connect with someone. It's not going to be amazing when you first try and relate to someone. I know when we first started talking, it was like, I don't know, wacky purple hair, louder than I'm used to. I don't know. I really don't know. But then over the years, or like over the years, it's been, as you know, you lose track of time after a while. It was like, yeah, we do get on. We do have similar takes on things. It's just personality. It's just the way we are. It's just the way it is. There's not we can do about that. But like you got to go through the bad repetitions before you can find the good repetitions. And I can't tell you how many times like I've completely ruined business relationships with people off the back of me diving in and going, okay, so do you want this thing? And I can put this together and this together and this together. And they just looked at me and gone, no. And then walked off, and that's been it. And we've never talked to them. We've never set eyes on each other again. I felt awkward to message them because I dove in too quickly. And the problem is as you said before, is it can ruin the entire future relationship with that person if you do go too quick sometimes.
Yeah, long game versus short game.
Yeah.
Notice I said the person that isn't qualified, I'm not just going to throw them off the phone. I may still give them some value, because what a lot of entrepreneurs miss out on is that that's that high horse of, I got all of these clients and I got all of this money, but eventually you're going to exhaust that audience. Even if you're growing with them and continuing creating products and they're buying and buying and buying, there's an even point when they're like, I don't need this anymore. Well, then who else is going to buy from you? Well, the person that you could have given a couple of nuggets to, who really wasn't qualified to do Facebook ads, maybe they got a strong handle on it and now they're ready for you, you know, and they'll come back around again. And so you have to have long game and short game, you know, when you do this entrepreneurial thing. And yes, you do have to go through the process and you have to embrace it, because working with me as a coach, and helping you dissect what those specific questions look like, and having you even go through sales simulation with me to practice it, doesn't mean, oh, I practiced it with my coach. And so now I got it. Then you have to actually get on the calls and actually go through the process with people. And please understand, I'm not anti-script. I am anti-generic script, generalized script, because what you're basically learning is how to create a script for yourself, but you can never be so married to your process that you forget the individual. And that's what gives you the ability to be fluid and flexible in the conversation, to switch gears when you have to, but you also learn how to switch those gears when you're like, oh my God, I never thought somebody would respond to me that way. Ask that kind of question, say that kind of thing. You learn in the doing. There's nothing that anyone does, whether that's athletics, whether that's writing movies, whether that's coaching or whatever. There isn't anything that anyone does on the face of the earth that you came out and you did it perfectly on the first shot, and that you do it perfectly even from there on when you master it. We are ever growing, perfectly flawed people. So go through the process, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. And I've also noticed as well.
I think she said she had a question.
Oh, have you? Oh, sorry, Nitra, go on. Go for it.
Okay, so August, are there two or three questions that you might steer away from when you're trying to build a rapport? The one like you be like, so how much are you ready to spend with me? You know how sometimes you get so excited because you're talking to that person or you're in person with that person. And then there's those questions that you be like, okay, you probably should steer away from them in that first meeting because you're trying to build a rapport, build a connection. Can you kind of share what those things may be that you might want to like hold off on or not like just dive right into in the beginning?
Now, this is not on the actual sales call, but just rapport period or on the call?
Just in the rapport period.
So in the rapport period, I don't want to know anything about money.
Okay.
I don't even on a sales call. Number one, I don't even want to know anything about money until it's, towards the latter part. We don't want to discuss money, period. Not because we're afraid of it. If you've done your copy right, if you've shown up right, if you have applications, you've already pre-qualified people. And so they already know whether or not you're a high ticket, middle ticket, low ticket coach. They know certain things like that. So I don't discuss anything that has to do with money. And instead of really having the questions that I avoid, I really think about the questions that I lend myself to. I lend myself to questions about knowing what makes you tick. I want to know what got you started. I want to know one of your greatest success stories. I want to know those kind of things. And so if I'm only sticking to those, I'm always going to ask the safe questions. But the minute that you start asking questions like, well, what have you done in order to become successful thus far? What kind of money have you spent? Are you looking to expand or grow your brand or to be bigger? Have you thought about reaching more people? As soon as I start talking like that, those are all of the beware, oh my God, any second now she's going to pitch me. Kind of like I talked about earlier in the segment. Yeah. If you notice that I've written books, have you ever thought about becoming an Amazon bestseller? I noticed that you're not Amazon bestseller at all. All of those things lead into a buy. Yeah. So any question that goes into that is hands off, but all questions about you, what you do, what makes you tick, those questions are safe. And somewhere in the middle of that, you also keep it very personal. We don't realize that if I'm on a bus stop and I'm sitting next to somebody, they're going to say, man, it's pretty sunny out here today. I can't stand all of this heat. It's a very generic, basic conversation that then builds. And then before you know it, the person on the bus stop is telling you the story of their life and how they, hate their boss. It builds. And that's what makes things organic and put somebody in a position where they want to end up spending money with you. So I hope that made sense.
Yeah, I think as well, there's a real sense of when because obviously we've had like over an hour now, and I've had the chance to digest it. I've sat down, I've had a drinking water, and I'm like, finished. So I've been able to digest a lot of this, and I found that it's about the person leading you to a certain degree. Like if the person feels open enough to share things, then they will. If they're not comfortable enough, if they don't feel safe enough to share their struggles with you, like it can feel like pulling out like not loose teeth, right? You're trying to pull out teeth sometimes, and I find that it's up to them whether they do it or not. It's got nothing to do with, all of the things that we spoke about regarding like pre-qualifying and content and sharing your story and maybe putting the prices on some of your posts so that they already know roughly how much it's going to cost them before they get on the call, and all those things. When you're on the call, to a certain extent, you've given them at least half the information that they would need before they made their decision. It's more about making sure that it's right for them, and if
Exactly.
they share it off their own free will. You don't, if you have to pull it, if you have to like, come on, tell me your deepest, darkest secrets so I can help you out, it's never going to work anyway. Because my next question then is, well, what would they be like as a client?
Absolutely.
What would they be like as a customer? Like if they're not comfortable enough to really commit to this with you, this is the sort of work that I do, someone has to be really open with me. It's just like, it's never going to work. Like imagine if someone did buy and I'm sat there and I go, this is exactly the same as the sales call. I feel like I'm having to pull weeds out of the grass and it's just a nightmare. And so sometimes you've got to, but when I personally do these kind of things, it's about creating this space for them to share. It's got nothing to do with me asking, oh, how much money have you spent on such and such a thing, or what job have you got, or, it's not something that you have to get from them. It's something that they willingly give to you.
Yeah, and I give first. And because I give first and people want to give to me, I put a post out. This was a couple months ago before I started a program that I'm just now doing. And I was like, oh my God, I spent X amount of dollars and I was in this program. I wasn't qualified. And I just told my story. A woman that was a new follower of mine reached out to me. She's like, I read your post and you want to know what got me was when you said you spent all that money. I did that 2 years ago too. So she's like, but I just want to know, can you help me? She sent me a message. And because I was vulnerable and told my story, a piece of my story resonated with her. Then she was asking, can I help you? And then we were on the phone. This is literally the way it happened. We got on the phone and I said, yes, I can help you. And she happens to be a jewelry designer. I used to design jewelry. I was like, not only can I help you, this is why I can help you. We were on the phone for all of 30 minutes and she didn't ask for a payment plan. She said, give me the link so that I can pay in full. And now I'm working with her and she wants to continue going after that, after this course. But that's because I gave what I wanted. You can't expect people to release information to you, and it's like pulling teeth, getting it from you as well. All of the greats tell you their story, and they tell you to tell your story. And when you do that, then you position people to be able to do it too. And most people really should already be at that point. Like, Mike, man, let me tell you, I'm dealing with, I got multiple sclerosis or something like that. They're going to be like, you're suffering through something and you're building a business. So let me tell you, it might not be the same issue physically, but they're going to be willing to say, this is what I'm having to overcome. And that's that connection. That's the rapport. They could look at me and be like, oh, August could really get my mind right. Mike could really get my mind right. Both of them are total badasses. I could deal with both of their personalities, but Mike is going to really understand me and what it looks like to build a business and dealing with some physical inhibitors. I'd rather work with Mike because Mike is going to get me. That's how powerful your story is. And a lot of you all aren't sharing some of the most crucial points of your life and your journey, and you're wondering why people won't work with you. You're too busy about worried about not looking like the expert. You're too busy worried about not looking like you're perfect and wanting to come out here and be all pristine. People love to see a conqueror, a warrior, a person that survives and pushes against all odds. Change and hope and change. And so that vulnerability is which is what unleashes people. If you market in such a manner that is only always process and results, then you may have difficult conversations with people that only want to talk process and results. But process and results conversation means I'm always thinking, so what are they going to do? Do I need all 5 or 6 of those steps? Da, 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 da. Okay. And when people think, they don't buy. Versus rapport and relationship and resonating, it's like, this person can really help me transform. Matter of fact, I think I had a transformation in my mindset sitting here talking to him. Hell, give me a link. I'm confident, but you lead with it. You got to lead with it if that's what you're looking for people to give you.
Yeah, I guess there's that balance between, because one of the stories that I used to have, this is before I even started posting, was I had to wait before I was successful, before I started doing all this stuff, right? There was this whole, well, all the celebrities are sharing about depression and struggling with this, that, and the other thing, but they're the celebrities, they've already made it. But the problem with that is everyone's doing it. Everyone. Whether you're sharing like depression or health conditions like I have, or the whole sort of mess of it all, the problem with it is you've got people that are successful that are doing it, people that aren't successful doing it, people that want to be successful doing it, people think that that's how they become successful doing it. And the problem is it's all true. But the thing is that you've got to think about, okay, well, they're sharing it. One of the things that it did for me was it gave me permission to do it. So when you hear celebrities sharing about depression and the fact that some people that are very bubbly on camera are actually very reserved behind closed doors, and it's just like, that should give you the permission to do it. That shouldn't give you the, well, he's already successful, blah, 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 blah. It should be, wow, they're doing it, therefore I can do it as well. And you'll find that like all the people that I've ever followed or spoken to or have spoke at this event or have had the amazing pleasure of my company for an hour and God knows how much, it becomes about the more you share, the more other people share. It's an interview technique that I took off Tim Ferriss. It's a content technique that I took off pretty much everyone that I know now, which is fortunate because everyone that I know is sharing their stories and things, which is really, really cool. But that's the way it is. The more you share, the more you ask them to share, rather than tell them to share, the more you share, the more you ask them to share, the deeper the connection will go. And I think that's pretty much wrapped up the entire hour and a half that we've spent talking about.
Wow, has it been that long? Wow.
It has been that long, yeah. And
but I've enjoyed it.
Surprisingly enough, not a lot of fluff there either. So we've managed to go like an hour and a half of like.
You already know I don't like fluff. I'm not going to tell my proprietary process, but because I want people to purchase from me. But you know me, I'm not. I'm anti-fluff. I like I said, I need to know. My people like to just say one last thing. I promise that we're not in here, and I won't make it take more than 2 minutes. People like should I put a price guarantee, on my products or services? I tell people all the time, I got a guarantee. All right, my guarantee is that if you give me your time, I won't waste it. That's it. That's my guarantee. I don't do money back guarantees because I know I'm shit. I know I get results. But as far as having a guarantee, you work with me and say I wasted your time. It's a damn lie. You take your time out of your day and you listen to me on a Facebook Live video and feel like I could have did something better with my life. That would be a damn lie. Auguste Crenshaw is never going to waste anybody's time, which means I don't give fluff. I don't give bull. I give hard-hitting content. And sometimes I give away so many nuggets, you could just walk away and figure out your shit. You don't even need me because I have no fear in giving away too much. It's so like, no, I got this.
More nuggets than McDonald's, which I never thought I would end a video mentioning McDonald's. So Auguste, it's been amazing to chat to you. As always, keep rocking the purple. I'm sure we'll keep in touch.
Yes. Oh, you did say one thing. You almost forgot because we're moving too fast. The offer, or are we still doing that at the end?
Oh, you mentioned your website and things before.
Okay.
We'll
follow me. Come check me out, and
we'll give all the links and the websites and everything so people can check you out.
All right.
Check you out in the nice way.
Yes. Mm-hmm.